If you've ever been taught about reversible reactions, you might remember being taught the Le Chatelier Principle. But if it's so important, why do textbooks keep getting it wrong? Why won't I teach it to my students? And have I fixed it? Keep watching and I'll tell you. Before we get into what the Le Chatelier Principle is and what's wrong with it, let's take a quick look at where his revolutionary ideas came from. Born in France in 1850, Henri Le Chatelier quickly proved himself to be a gifted chemist. In fact, one of the greatest chemists in Europe at the time. The latter half of the 19th century was right at the time when principles from mathematics and thermodynamics were being applied to chemistry. And this meant Le Chatelier's talent for maths and practical experiments came at just the right time to blow the subject wide open. Le Chatelier focused principally on what we'd now call industrial chemistry, looking at developing the production of things like cement, iron and ammonia. Crucially, all of these processes involve some sort of dissociation reaction, where chemicals break up into something else. And Le Chatelier became fascinated by the previous idea of Henri de Ville, who said that these dissociation reactions could actually go backwards too. So the idea that chemical reactions could go forwards as well as backwards was not new by the time Le Chatelier came to it. But at this point, it was little more than the knowledge that it was possible. And no one really knew what to do with it, or how powerful that knowledge could be. But now enter Willard Gibbs, who you might know from Gibbs' free energy fame. Gibbs crucially wrote a series of papers that showed a clear connection between principles in thermodynamics and behaviour seen in chemistry. The papers were very mathematical and went mostly unrecognised because, let's face it, boring, but Le Chatelier had just the right combination of skills to see the significance. This combination of thermodynamics and chemistry would go on to make sense of all kinds of chemical behaviour that hadn't seemed connected before. And it took the specific talents of Le Chatelier to really bring it all together. He applied the ideas of Gibbs to observations of reversible reactions and later proposed a generally applicable principle that would summarise his findings. After that, he proved his principle was valid by backing it up with carefully constructed laboratory experiments. This insight was a massive leap forward for chemistry, applying to chemistry in any field where it turns up, whether that's agriculture, medicine, batteries, or producing the millions of tons of ammonia every year that literally keeps us all alive. All thanks to his principle. The one that textbooks keep getting wrong. The one I won't teach to my students. But before I get on to that, I just want to tell you that this video is produced at Kyushu University in Japan. It's one of Japan's top universities, and we have courses in science and engineering in English. A great alternative in these uncertain times. So check out the link in the description. So now, let's inspect the famous Le Chatelier Principle, which says, well, what does it say? If you know, pause the video and just say it in your head, or even better, post it in the comments before continuing. I'd love to know how you remember it. Okay? Done? Well, here it is.
Tout système en équilibre
chimique stable, soumise à l'influence d'une cause.
Actually, let's do that in English. Every system in stable chemical equilibrium submitted to the influence of an exterior force which tends to cause the variation either in its temperature or its condensation, pressure, concentration, number of molecules in the unit volume, in its totality or only in some of its parts, can undergo only those interior modifications which, if they occur alone, will produce a change of temperature or of condensation of a site contrary to that resulting from the exterior force. Did you get it right? Let me know in the comments if you did, but I won't believe you. Now, to be fair, he did simplify it several years later, so condensed, the simplified Le Chatelier Principle is: every change in one of the factors of a system in chemical equilibrium occasions a rearrangement of the system in such a direction that the factor in question experiences a change in sense opposite of the original change. Is that what you said? No, I didn't think it would be. Perhaps you've seen it the way it's expressed in this document from the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. If a change occurs in the concentration of a component in an equilibrium mixture, the system will tend to adjust itself so as to annul, as far as possible, the effect of that change. Probably not that one either. Perhaps you've seen it as quoted in this educational document from the UK's Royal Society of Chemistry. If a system at equilibrium is disturbed by changing the conditions, the system will react in such a way as to oppose the change. Simpler and easier to learn. But we've lost some accuracy now. We've lost the "as far as possible" clause. But I'll wager a comment that the version you've actually seen is more like this one from the next paragraph in that same Royal Society of Chemistry document. If something is done to the equilibrium system, the position of equilibrium will change in order to reduce or remove the effects of the disturbance and get back into balance. But that one's wrong. And most likely, the version you remember is like this one, again from the RSC document. If the pressure on the reacting system is increased, the system will try to reduce the pressure again by reducing the number of particles. This version is very, very wrong. In fact, it's so wrong. The whole reason Le Chatelier's original principle was so long was that he was desperately trying not to say it this way. So what is the problem? What is it he was trying not to say? Intention. In the most popular retellings of Le Chatelier's principle, we have phrases like "in order to," or even worse, "try to." These versions make it sound like our reaction mixture knows what it should do to get back to equilibrium, or that there's some kind of mystical intelligence that is choosing to resist any change. And that's not true. A chemical reaction is just a bunch of molecules bouncing around and very occasionally reacting. Of course, they're not trying to do anything. So why does it look like they know what they're doing? And why are the expert educators at the Royal Society of Chemistry actually choosing to get the Le Chatelier principle wrong? Well, let's look at the first point first. How can a bunch of molecules bouncing around and very occasionally reacting look like they are trying to do something? Well, I've actually made a video about this where I use a simple dice game to do everything that a chemical equilibrium can do. So if you want to see some simple plastic game counters trying to resist a change in their concentration, check it out. Now, second point. If we know that molecules are stupid and don't know what they're doing, and the Royal Society of Chemistry certainly knows molecules are stupid and don't know what they're doing, why are they still teaching the wrong version? Well, I'm sure you've worked it out. This form is easier to understand and makes the behavior of chemical equilibria easier to predict. And it also means, and yes, I hate this, it makes exam questions much easier to answer. But even when we are using the correct form of the Le Chatelier principle, there's still something fundamentally wrong with it. The problem with the very first version is obvious. It's way too long, but his condensed version is still too long, even though it's only one sentence. To make a detailed explanation simple, the separate parts of this sentence are too long to make it readable. Try it, and you'll find you keep stopping to go back and start again. That's not your fault. It's a badly constructed sentence. Okay, so maybe we just need to tweak the sentence a bit and fix it. Let's take another look at the Royal Society of Chemistry's attempt. Now this time we've got an if sentence, which means we have to hold everything after the if and up to the comma in our memories as we read the rest of the sentence. That's 10 words before the comma, but we can only hold 6 words in our working memory. This isn't a problem with English grammar, it's a fundamental limit of the human brain. Magicians, politicians and con artists use this limitation all the time to confuse us. And on top of that, after the comma, we've got the system will react in such a way as to oppose the change. That's 13 words. It's even worse. So it'll always take you several attempts to read this sentence. Now, if you already understand reversible reactions, that might not be a big problem. But remember, the Le Chatelier principle is supposed to be useful for explaining how reversible reactions work to people that don't already understand it. And for them, so far, it's almost worse than useless. It makes students think that reversible reactions are too difficult to understand. But the problem is not them, it's how the principle is written. To be clear, I'm not blaming the Royal Society of Chemistry or IUPAC or anyone else for this problem. In fact, the reason I'm using them as an example is because they are some of the best chemists and educators in the world, and even they have trouble with this. But now, maybe we can understand why they teach the really wrong version of the Le Chatelier principle. Let's take another look. Reversible reactions try to resist changes in their conditions. Right? It's so much simpler. But now we've introduced the wrong idea that dumb molecules are trying to do something. Now, I don't know how the Le Chatelier principle works in other languages, but I'm convinced it can't be very different. And that's because how reversible reactions work arises from a few different concepts that need explaining separately. And you can't compress them into one simple sentence, maybe not even one paragraph. And if you want to know what the difference is between reversible and non-reversible reactions, I'm working on that video right now, so be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss it. So maybe now you can see why I don't teach the Le Chatelier principle to my students. Either it's not possible to understand it until after you already understand chemical equilibria, or you're learning something that isn't true. As a university lecturer, I've got to get my students away from simply answering exam questions and be able to build models in their head. That takes time, and taking the shortcut of the Le Chatelier principle will simply not help in the long run. Although, having said that, if anyone can make a one-sentence Le Chatelier principle, I think it's me. But before I tell you what it is, if you could just hit the like button, it'll help me make more videos. Thank you. So, here we go. The Le Chatelier principle, Robertson variation. A chemical equilibrium will behave as if resisting changes. That's it. It's simple. You can use it to make predictions. The phrasing doesn't claim the equilibrium can resist all change. And this version makes it clear that there's more to know. A chemical equilibrium is not actually resisting changes, it's behaving as if it is. Maybe students will want to find out more, maybe they won't, but they can use this to get started. So, what do you think? Does the Robertson variation work or not? You all always give me great feedback, so I'd love to see your comments. And if you want to dig into the history of the Chatelier Principle some more, I've put a bunch of links to the materials I used in the description. And before I forget, here's that video about how reversible reactions really work, and this one's really good too. And I'll see you next time.